When you hear the word cowboy, the image that comes to mind is certainly that of a white man riding a horse who fights with his gun all day long. But what if I told you that this image is not real, or at least not as we know it, and not at all as Hollywood has portrayed? Cowboy is an American term that has gained wide popularity in films and books that talk about the Wild West. The stereotypical image shows them with spur boots and 6-bullet guns, and their only job is to fight to the death and roam the desert. And of course, they are all white and very American, but the truth is very different from this. Their origin is not American, and they are not all white men. Although cowboys is considered purely American, the tradition of cowboys began in Spain and then developed in the region that is now known as Mexico and part of South America. It did not become American until almost 2 centuries later. After Spain and Portugal colonized the Americas in the 16th century, they brought herds of cattle and Spanish and Arabian horses with them because horses had become extinct in the Americas since the end of the Ice Age, and they settled in the part that now represents Mexico and Florida. When the demand for beef increased, it was necessary to expand the livestock herding area. And when the pastures of cattle became larger than they could herd on foot, the cowboys rode horses, and the cattle had to be guided from the horse. So they learned how to tie ropes and throw them around the necks of the cattle. They redirected the sheep and cows that strayed from the herd in this way. The cowboys were called vaquero, a word derived from the word vaca, which means cow. Cowboy duties spread and developed further in Mexico. The first cowboys were mostly black or of mixed race, between Europeans and Africans. This is because the cowboy profession was one of the lowest professions, but it was available to black people or those who were enslaved or their children, and a few of them were indigenous or Native Americans. But by 1570, due to the high number of indigenous deaths as a result of diseases and wars, their numbers decreased, and the majority of cowboys became black or mixed. The first cowboys in the 16th century, whether freemen or among those who were enslaved, were working for one pasture owner all their lives. But at the beginning of the 17th century, new forms of cowboys began to appear. They were called outlaw or travelers. They moved from village to village and worked for whoever paid the most. Most of them were freed or escaped enslaved people and were very skilled. The word cowboy was used for the first time by the writer Jonathan Swift in 1725, but this title was not used until the 19th century. English-speaking settlers began entering what is now known as Texas in 1821 and built colonies there. In 1848, before the war between Mexico and America, citizens from the northeastern United States who traveled to California met the vaquero and exchanged products with them in exchange for the skins and meat of cattle. As trade increased between them, the vaquero culture began to spread and witnessed a transformation when it mixed with English culture and traditions, and what is now known as the cowboys appeared. Over time, the cowboys led herds of cattle over vast distances to trade through many cities and created a culture of their own. Born out of their dangerous work and isolated conditions while traveling, they developed a habit of self-reliance and embodied this culture in songs and poems, emphasizing the importance of integrity and honesty. Most cowboy clothing, sometimes called Western clothing, arose from practical necessity and the environment in which cowboys worked. And in newspapers, the cowboy's life, full of danger, poverty, and long working hours, was romantic. The involvement of politics helped create the image that exists today. They embodied the concepts that the Democratic Party wanted to spread, which was self-reliance. They portrayed cowboys as men who worked hard, played hard, protected themselves, and did not ask for anything from the government. Cowboy traditions were engraved in people's minds with the development of Wild Western shows in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, which romanticized the lives of both cowboys and Native Americans. From the 1920s to the present day, films have promoted the cowboy lifestyle but also shaped a recurring stereotype that is not true, and even the fights with pistols, when each cowboy puts his hand on his pistol and whoever pulls the trigger faster wins, is an absolutely unreal image. That was invented by Hollywood. In fact, the use of firearms was not common at that time, because most towns had strict rules regarding firearms. It was forbidden to carry weapons in public areas, and sometimes cowboys would leave their weapons at the entrance of town and retrieve them when they left. The stereotype of cowboys engaging in frequent gun battles in the streets is largely a product of popular culture and Hollywood movies. While there were certainly some famous gunfights, it was not common, and instead most cowboys spent their time working in farms, taking care of livestock and horses. In conclusion, if you think that the life of the Wild West and cowboys was like what you see in the movies, and you could go back in time to that period and think that you would see a shooting in the street while women and children run for cover, and the saloon owner peeks out from behind the double doors, while two dusty men approach each other ready to pull their guns. This will never happen, and you may be very disappointed in the monotonous daily life of cowboys, because Hollywood can make good movies but not historically accurate. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment down below.